Hello, everyone. My name is Danny the Chew. And before we start the podcast, I need to let you know right now your breath is horrible. I was trying to just sit here and do the podcast without mentioning it because I thought I could just get through it and then we'd all have our fun and then I never have to smell that again. But unfortunately, it is so bad, I don't think that I can deal with it. So can you just go get an Altoid or get some mouthwash or brush your teeth or something, because I can't stand it. So with that being said, I want to talk about criticism. When somebody gives you some feedback on something that you have put out into the world, and it's usually not good. When somebody says criticism, it's implied that it is negative criticism. Constructive criticism is a very important part of criticism as a whole concept, but typically criticism has a lot more to dive into than constructive criticism. So I'm going to talk about just normal criticism. Now, the reason that I decided to make this so early on is because of something that happened in real life. I made this podcast and it was all private and nobody could really see any of it. And I made an episode and it was called "The World is Not as Bad as We Think It Is." And that episode was very serious in its nature. And I didn't have any jokes in it. It was all just front to back. It was 10 minutes of me explaining my logic on why the world isn't as bad as we think it is. And I showed that to my girlfriend. And I was expecting her to say, "Wow, this is really interesting. I'm really glad that you've decided to make a podcast. And I think it's a pretty cool topic that you talked about. And I think that you conveyed your points really well." But she didn't say that. And it really embarrassed me. It was weird and disheartening because she said, she didn't even listen to all of it. First off, she said, "Okay, I think I'm done," like 3 minutes in. And she said, "Was this scripted?" And I said, "Well, no, it wasn't scripted. They didn't really have a whole lot going into it." And she said, "Okay, that's good." And it really hurt me. And I realized at that point, I am really bad at taking criticism. With me telling that story, Mariana, my girlfriend, is completely in the clear. I re-listened to the episode. It was pretty bad. I've used her feedback to change a lot of how I'm making episodes now. But the fact that I took her criticism and I took it personal and it made me sad like a little bitch boy, I realized, holy shit, I am really, really bad at taking criticism. And that's not a good thing. I really want to be good at taking criticism because that is something that I can use to make my content better. I'm trying to think of why I'm not good at taking criticism. I wasn't really raised with yes men or parents who gave me everything I wanted in the way that would typically make a child a spoiled child or something like that. But I think usually I was surrounded with people who didn't particularly know how to give feedback on what I was creating. So if I made a YouTube video, the only thing that my parents would be able to say bad about it was that I made a joke that was a little offensive, or I said a word that they didn't like or something like that. It wasn't ever, "I think that you should increase the attack on your compression preset because I can hear your breaths too much," or something like that. I never got a lot of criticism on my content that was helpful when it comes to producing it, as opposed to just what it looks like and just the very, very basic first impressions. So when I showed Mariana the podcast and then she had several thoughts on how it was produced as far as how I was talking and what I was saying and how unstructured it all felt, I was embarrassed because I realized that she was right. I used some excuses. I said, well, this podcast is kind of just an outlet for me to not do things that are too structured and I don't have to think too hard. I can just start talking and that'll be it. And then she said, "Yeah, that's good. I just think you could do better. I think that you're saying a lot. I think that you're not finishing your points before you're moving on to the next one. And you're spending too much time on things that we get." And I realized that she was right, and I was really embarrassed. And this reminded me, a couple days before that, I had gotten some feedback on a school assignment. I thought that I had done really well. At the very least, I didn't do amazing because I didn't have a ton of time to finish it. So I ended up being like 1 page short. But the professor, she gave me a very bad grade. I won't say it, but it was one of the worst grades, if not the worst grade that I have ever gotten on any assignment ever. And upon reading her feedback, I got defensive and I said, this doesn't make any sense. And I still agree with that. I don't think it made a lot of sense as to why it deserved that bad of a grade. But once again, it ruined my day. I was having a normal day, and then I got some feedback, some negative feedback, and then all of a sudden, I was just grumpy and pouty, and I said, man, you don't know me. You don't even know how to do your job. And I'm wanting to take this as kind of a preaching to the choir. The fact that I'm making a podcast episode about criticism kind of implies I'm trying to teach you about criticism, when in reality, I'm kind of trying to talk through my own thoughts and figure out why I feel that way. And also just to put this out into the world that maybe you're like me and you do not take criticism well, and that's something that you should change. Because I think that the self-improvement aspect of it is the most exciting thing, because I found something that I can work on. I don't think I'm a perfect person by any means, but it's not too frequently that I find something that I can say, this is a very clear-cut bad thing that I'm doing. It's not up for interpretation. I can't justify this. I'm doing this thing that is bad, that is wrong, and I need to change it about me. I find that kind of exciting, as long as I don't take it too personal, which is, again, part of criticism. So I'm going to release this out into the world, and I might get some feedback on it. I might get told something about how well I formed my words, about how fast I spoke, about how I enunciated my words. Or I might get something saying, you sound like you're too close to the microphone. You sound like you get loud at some parts and quiet in the other. I could get various types of criticism and feedback. And I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to try to not take it personally. I'm not going to take it and be mad that I didn't do it for this episode. I'm going to take the feedback and I'm going to apply it to the next episode. And that's not just with podcasts. That's something that I'm going to try to do in life. Whenever I am told this could be improved, I'm not going to dwell on the past. I am not going to take it personal. I am going to see if I can fix it in the future. So with that being said, I think that is a wrap.